Hello and welcome to the G-Log for the 8th of March 2015. I am Gary Raver. This is going to be a bit of a different G-Log. First I've got something to say regarding the copyright stuff, and then I'm going to be giving you my opinions on the TV show Breaking Bad, which I've recently finished watching, but I'll come to that in a sec. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone who's been so supportive of the whole thing. The comments are absolutely amazing, and you're brightening my day with each one. Thank you very much for your continued support. It does mean a lot to me. But yes, the majority of this G-Log will be about Breaking Bad, one of the highest rating TV shows ever, I believe. But before I begin, this will contain spoilers for the entire series. So, if you haven't watched it and you intend to, watch it before watching this G-Log. You've been warned. Carrying on. I tried watching this a while ago before the end, before it actually finished. And I got about 3 seasons in and I just got bored and stopped watching. But I came back to it recently and I've sort of been binge watching it recently and I finally finished it and I wasn't that impressed, if I'm perfectly honest. So I'll explain by sort of going through the different characters. So first of all, the big one, Walt. I hate him. I can't stand the character at all. Right from episode 1, he goes out of his way to be unlikable. And I know that's part of the point of it. I was talking to Evan about this earlier, and yeah, that's part of the point of the show, that the characters are unlikable. The part of the point of the show is that the characters are human, as it were. So they're not good or bad, they're just varying degrees of grey. But he gets a particularly murky, brownish grey. You can do grey morals while still having a likeable character. And I'm racking my brain to think of one. Oh yes, also another warning. I'll be making references to the anime Death Note. Minus... I'll try and limit the spoilers on that, but I'll just be making general references to it. I'll try and limit the spoilers, and I'll say right before any spoilers if I do have to say them. But yes, anyway. I can't think of any other, not off the top of my head, any characters that are this morally grey but still likeable. Actually, Mike. Mike in this. Yeah, Mike. That's a good one. I'll come back to that in a sec. But yes, Walt is just unlikable from the word go. He's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna cook meth, and now I'm going to push it beyond. And why does he keep doing? I get that he's like greedy and stuff, but why is he pushing for these things? It's like he's barely managed to do. This is I'm thinking like season 2 or season 1 or whenever it is he's dealing with Tuca. I think it's season 1 before Tuca kills that guy. But it's like, oh, we barely managed to finish this batch, but we're going to give you double next time. And that greed, the look Jesse gives him is bang on. I'm getting a bit too specific. Anyway, yes, he's just an unlikable character. He is an utter unlikable character, and he does nothing to redeem himself. Throughout the entire thing, he gets worse and worse, and there are a few moments where he might sort of redeem himself, but he just doesn't. And the payoff at the end, the ending, I'll mention it now while it's fresh in my mind. The ending has been, Jamie and Ra called it the best ending of any TV show he'd seen, I believe he said. And I can see why he'd think that, but I disagree. It was a good ending, only in that it was the best ending they could have possibly done. But that's like saying, this mud house is an amazing mud house. Of course, next to a brick house, it is a mud house. But as a mud house, it's amazing. With the pieces they had, with this scrabbled together mess of a story that they created. Well, not even the mess of a story in a lot of places, but these characters, these horrible characters they had left, they'd either killed off or dehumanized every decent character in this show. The ending that they had, it tied up all the loose ends nicely, but they were like frayed, murky, just like dirt encrusted loose ends. that would just, yeah, I don't really care. And the insistence that Walt is the main character. I get that it's sort of his progression. It's not, I can't stand him. So when it got to the point where he's like, oh, he's going around and seeing all these people, I don't care what he's doing. I want to know what Jesse's doing. Jesse I actually liked until they dehumanized him and made him a crying dog. It got to the point where in season 5, Hank was the protagonist in my mind. He was the only one who was, protagonist worthy. And I know to a degree Walt is an anti-hero, but anti-heroes have got to be likeable. Deadpool is hilariously likeable. Walt is not. Walt is the sort of person where if you actually met him, you'd want to kick the shit out of him, quite frankly, because he is just that bad. And that's not how you do a TV show. You can't have your main characters, or like any character, all your characters rather, unlikable, because it makes me not care about them. You can have an antagonist who is despicable, who is just utterly depraved, but if they're interesting, you care about them. But Walt, I just didn't care about at all. Jesse I really liked from the beginning. He was my favourite character for the majority of the series. Yes, he was a bit of a pushover, and I kept waiting for him to just, grow a pair and fight back, but he never did. And it got to the point where he was dehumanized and turned into a dog. Essentially. A meth-cooking dog. I did warn about spoilers. Just like the entire last season, he didn't really have any meaning. He was just sort of there. And I read that they originally planned to kill him off after season 1. And to be honest, it shows when it comes to season 5 because he isn't doing anything. The only reason he's still alive is to keep the blue meth going. That's it. And the not killing Walt thing, in the final episode, it's like, right, he's going to go find Jesse, and Jesse's going to kill him. If Jesse doesn't kill him, I'm going to be really pissed. And he didn't, and I was pissed. And he just leaves, and he's crying again, and driving, and I know he's just been freed, but after everything that happened between them, just a little nod of, I respect you now, wasn't any kind of payoff at all. It was an anticlimax, and with the way that this show was going in its final few episodes, setting up for this massive explosive blowout, yes, the whole machine gun in the trunk thing was very clever, but Jesse should have killed him. If Jesse had been the one, even if it had just been Jesse gave him the stomach wound that killed him, rather than I assume from his own gun, his own machine gun. If Jesse had just shot him and walked out, then that would have been payoff for Jesse. But he didn't get it. He got no payoff. He was ushered out. And that was incredibly disappointing. Hank, yes, I mentioned that he was the protagonist in my eyes in the last season. And yeah, he was. He was the only one who seemed to be fighting for something. Walt was fighting for, oh, I'm greedy and I want my money. And Skylar was just a bitch. That's all I have to say about her. She's just no redeeming qualities at all. They kept trying to play the sympathy card, but no, she's just too big a bitch for it to work. But Hank actually had morals. He's just discovered this about his brother-in-law, and he's utterly outraged, and he does something about it. And then they killed him off. And I kept drawing parallels with Death Note, and I tweeted a little bit about this. Hank is L. Well, I see, in season 5, I saw Breaking Bad as an inept live-action Death Note, is how I put it. But what I mean by that is, it's a less intelligent Light in the form of Walter. Granted, a less intelligent L, but just the whole thing it reminded me of Death Note, and it made me think, wow, Death Note is so much better than this. With the planning and everything, and the bit that really stood out, Walt didn't deny the accusations. When Hank just goes, oh, it was you the whole time. If he did deny it, I didn't hear it, and considering what had just been said to him, I should have heard it quite clearly multiple times. So even if he just said, no, you're wrong, that's not enough. He should have been, crying and saying, no, how can you think that of me? But instead he was just like, you caught me, bye, you won't prove it, bye. And then Skylar Hank calls her up and it's like, oh, Walter's Heisenberg, and she's like, oh shit, you're right, but I'm not going to tell you anything more. I'm going to tell you you're right, and then that's it. Why did they not deny it? Just why? Did they need to go from him being clueless to him having, like, proof but no proof? It confirmed without proof, rather. In the span of one episode? And then the second half of season 5 just drags on so long. It's like from him finding out, it's like 8 episodes or 5 episodes or something before there's any payoff from it. That was what this season 4 was when it should have ended. It should have ended, series should have ended at the end of season 4. But it didn't. And season 5 was a fizzle. But Mike was a good character. I liked Mike. He was interesting. He didn't have enough depth in my mind, but he was certainly a hell of a lot more interesting than Walter, and by that point, Jesse. Jesse had just become a shadow, and Walt was a massive, arrogant block of granite casting the shadow. But Mike was interesting. He was a capable character, which by that point was just ridiculously rare. Even with Walt being his, like, oh, I'm a super genius thing, Mike was the only one who actually knew anything about anything. And his death was ridiculous, and at that point it was just like, yeah, Walt won't ever come back from that in my eyes. He's terrible. He's just awful. And I don't mean, oh no, he's a horrible person. I mean, the character is just unredeemably unlikable now. They could have just, like, have him leave, and him being one of the few survivors and picking up the wreckage with Jesse would have been a better ending than the ending Mike got. I mean, Saul was another character I liked, and well, it irritated me how much they treated him like shit throughout the entire thing, but at least he was alive at the end. He did sort of drop off the face of the earth after popping up for like a minute. It's like, okay, he's vanishing now, he's gone, bye! No more Saul. Do you see what I mean by fizzle? There was not enough payoff for the build-up. Not with Walter, not with Jesse, or Mike, or Hank, or Saul, or any character in this. They didn't get a proper payoff. So when I say that the series ended the best way it could, they did tie up the loose ends, or at least like 90% of them. We did get some like last thoughts, like what Junior thought, and Scarlett's a bitch, but you know, what she thought as well. I still don't know why Lydia kept popping up. I was not at all interested in that. It's like, oh, now this is the meth industry without them. It's like, good for them. It's not relevant at all. And the only reason it was in there is because Jesse was stuck with them at the end, as I see it. That was the only reason they actually kept informing us of these things. But again, that got, like, no payoff. We didn't even see Lydia die. It's just like, oh, yeah, she's been poisoned by ricin. She now knows she's been poisoned by ricin. End of the season. Bye-bye. Making another Death Note comparison. This one will have some spoilers for Death Note. Click here to skip this comparison. The big mistakes that Light made, in my eyes, were killing Lindell Taylor. That was the worst thing he could have done in that situation. And then mistreating Misa. He had no reason to mistreat Misa. He was stuck with her, whether he liked it or not, and I still don't know why he was so dismissive of her. But also, it was made very clear that if he mistreated her, he would get killed, and he was still a massive twat to her. But yes, mostly the Lindell Taylor thing. That's just a side thing why I dislike him as a character, and why he isn't as intelligent as he gets portrayed. The Lindell Taylor thing, that was just arrogance and showing off. And that's what sealed his fate. I've watched the series like twice, 3 times, and it's that moment that he screws everything up. Walt, it was either keeping the book from Gale, or the drunken arrogance of telling Hank, oh, Gale wasn't the genius, it was somebody else, Gale's just an amateur student. I don't care if he was drunk, that is just a brain-dead thing to say. Whatever reason, that was just his arrogance, because he was too egotistical to have somebody else claim credit for his work. Even if he's trying to pass it off as somebody else anyway by claiming he's not Heisenberg. Moronic. is what it is. Or it could be the keeping the book. Why would he keep this book? That comparison became incredibly obvious to me the moment it happened. Less so with the first one, the drunken thing, but retrospectively I realised that was a comparison. Okay, well that's the comparison over between those, so welcome back those who skipped it. This is probably going to be my longest G-log so far, but I did want to just give you my thoughts on this show, which has been so highly rated and so recommended by a lot of my friends. I would not recommend it. It's sort of interesting in the first season with it's a thing that's not really been done before. Ordinary people cooking meth or just producing drugs in this way. I've never seen that before. But the characters are utterly unlikable. Marie actually becomes rather sympathetic towards the end. Marie and Hank really come to the foreground when everybody else is just sinking into this mire of shit and unlikability. But Junior, he doesn't really do anything either way. He's either shouting at somebody for not doing what he wants, or he's getting what he wants. Skylar is just a bitch. I've spoken at length about the others. They're not likable people at all. And they add a few, but then they kill them off. Gus was okay, I guess. He wasn't amazing. He was a bit too vengeful and violent for my liking. They could have gone the really professional businessman approach, and they sort of half went for it. And I think that's what made him less interesting to me. As the seasons go, they kill off or dehumanize any likability in the characters, to the point that the only reason I finished watching it was because I wanted to be able to say I finished watching it. The completionist is what made me complete it, rather than any caring about the characters. Yeah, I wanted to know what was happening with Jesse, but I'm really disappointed by the payoff on that, so it doesn't even get that kind of recommendation. Watch it for Jesse. I'm not going to say it's a bad show. It has its moments. The I am the danger, I'm the one who knocks thing was nowhere near as impressive as it gets portrayed in trailers, because he was like in his bloody pyjamas. Nobody can sound tough when they're in their bloody pyjamas. I don't care if it was pyjamas or just a t-shirt and whatever, but it wasn't the right attire for those words. It could have been amazing if he'd had his hat on, for example. That would have improved it immensely, because then it would just be Heisenberg being threatening, and that's the sort of thing that you could reference. But when it's an old man in baggy clothes telling his wife that he is the danger, it just comes across as pathetic, looking back. So the show has its moments, but overall the characters, I've stressed this a lot, the characters are unlikable, and that is the main kneecapping thing. Right from the first episode, the show was kneecapped by its characters. If there had been a single character who was consistently likable in the main cast, Saul was the closest. Mike had his moments where I didn't like him, but Saul was the only one who didn't actually irritate me at any point, but that's because he was just pistol whipped by every other character. He didn't have a chance to irritate me because he didn't do anything. He'd come up with an idea, they'd go, "Oh, you idiot, Saul, no." But if they'd listened to him, if they'd taken his advice, if he'd been a confidant beyond just fix this now, then maybe I'd feel differently. But no, I wouldn't recommend the show to anyone, really. Watch it to see what the hype's about, but if it doesn't catch you in the first few episodes, I really wouldn't bother, because it's not worth the time of 5 seasons that drag on. And they're not massively long seasons, but they just drag on so much. And with unlikable characters and a plot that makes you keep going, why are they doing these stupid things? They have no reason to be doing these stupid things. Then you're just going to have a hard time finishing it. By all means, tell me you disagree. Don't tell me I'm wrong in the comments, please. I'm giving you my opinion, and I've already spoken to Jamie and Evan about this. That's Jamie and Raren, Thorn 16. I've spoken to them about this, and they disagree over certain things. But this is my thoughts on Breaking Bad, please give me your opinion in the comments. Give me your opinion, what you thought of the show, what you think of my opinions and my ideas about how it could have been improved. I'd like to do more of this kind of G-log. This is partially what it was supposed to be like when I set up the G-logs. It was supposed to be a way for me to give you my opinions as well as just information. So let me know if you like this kind of thing, because, you know, I'm always watching other stuff, and I'd love to give you my thoughts on that as well. This isn't really a review, it's just what I personally thought of it. I'm not like I sort of analysed the characters and the story a little bit, but, you know, it's not so much a review, it's just me talking about a show I watched. And if you've stuck through and listened to this whole thing, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate you hanging on and hearing what I have to say about this inconsequential thing. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry if any of the spoilers got to you, but I did give a warning at the beginning. See you next week. Catch you later.